Hi, and welcome to the Power of Savings. We are so glad that you're joining us. This is a part 3 of a 5-part series on finance for teens. We've previously covered College Without Debt, My First Job, 5 Steps to Making the Most of Your Money. And later in the series, we're going to cover the magic of interest and budgeting for teens. Without further ado, let's get started. During today's presentation, we're going to discuss the following topics: American statistics, teen spending habits, the cost of moving out, how to make money, how much should you be saving, how do I save money, and finally, we're going to be assigning some homework that matters. So, who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, first of all, my name is Rochelle, and I'm a certified financial coach. When I was a teenager, I did things the hard way. I moved out of my house at age 17 and went straight to work and went to college a little later. But that caused me to go into some debt. And over my lifetime, I went into quite a bit of debt. But my husband and I got smart. We learned our lesson, and we paid off over $350,000 in debt in just over 6 years. I'm also a mom of 3, and I have 2 teenagers myself. Also, along with my husband and I, we share our knowledge of personal finance with a community of over 400 people in our Facebook group. And we'll show you how to connect with our Facebook group later on. So before we get into the hows and the whys of saving money, let's start with a quick question. What are my goals? What do I hope to get out of my money? Remember, goals are important when it comes to money. Having clear goals will allow your money to do what you want it to do. So take a minute, pause the video if you need to, and answer those 2 questions. Moving out is a rite of passage. What you don't hear being celebrated is when you have to move back in with mom and dad. I can promise you this, living with your parents now is very different from living with them after you have experience being on your own for a while. So while the average age a teen moves out is at 19, 54.6% of teens will move back in with their parents by age 27. Now, let's talk about debt. Looking at the slide shows a large difference between debt between the ages of 23 and 24. As you can see, the average debt of young adults between ages 18 and 23 is just about $9,500. And the average debt of those 24 to 39 is a whopping $78,000. Now, why do you think that is? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Between 24 and 25 is usually the average age that parents stop helping you out. You aren't on their insurance anymore, things like that. It's also about the time that your student loans, if you have them, are going to come due, and you might even be starting a family during this time. Now, it doesn't matter what age you are, everyone has things they spend their money on. Teens, however, since they don't have many bills, if any at all, tend to spend their money on food, clothing, beauty products, and entertainment. While all of these things are fun to enjoy, they're also unnecessary. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't spend any money on these. I just think it should be way less than most teens do. Did you know that teens accounted for $75 billion in spending last year? With the average teen spending on about $2,600 a year on just food and clothing. That doesn't include beauty products or entertainment. Now remember, as the slide says, teens get most of their fashion advice from influencers. These influencers are often paid to promote top brands, which come with a hefty price. And then entertainment like video games, concerts, and other outings with friends can really add up. Now, once you move out, you're going to need a place to live. The cost of rent is insane today, and the average person making minimum wage can't afford to live on their own. Let's take a look at the average housing costs in the U.S. A 1-bedroom is by far the most expensive of the options, with a price tag of $1,216 a month. Add in utilities and food, and you are going to need just over $1,400 or more per month. Working minimum wage is only going to make you about $1,100 a month before taxes, and that's only if you work a full 40 hours a week. Now, getting a roommate is definitely a better option. So let's say you have one roommate. Your cost is going to drop down to about $960 a month, and two roommates will get you even lower at just $835 a month. Remember though, that just covers rent, utilities, and food. The final option we have on this list is actually house hacking. It's by far the best option if you can make it happen. However, I do caution strongly to make sure that you do your research before choosing this option. Now, what is house hacking, you might ask? Well, house hacking is when someone buys a house, for this example, let's say a 3-bedroom. They live in one room and rent out the others. The average US price for a home for a 3-bedroom is about $200,000. Now, you're going to need to come up with a down payment, which is going to be between 20 and 25%. If you're able to do that and you get a good enough interest rate, your payment should be around $1,400 a month. Now, instead of paying your mortgage yourself, you actually rent out the other 2 rooms for $700 each, allowing someone else to pay your mortgage. As you can see, this is the cheapest for you, but it does come with some potential problems. For example, you would have to keep renters in the home that can pay each month without fail, because if you don't, you will have to, or the bank can take your house and leave you with an extremely bad credit rating. Like I said, it's great if you can make it work. Now, long gone are the days where teens only are able to make money through minimum wage jobs or $2 an hour babysitting. Yes, that's how much your parents probably made babysitting at your age. That's how much I made. Now, with the rise of online platforms and social media, the opportunities for teens to make money are very plentiful. Of course, they do still have the option of the basic after-school job. I, for one, think everyone should work in fast food, retail, or food services at least once in their lives. The first I'd suggest is starting a business. That's right, I said start a business. Now, starting a business doesn't have to be hard. It's as simple as looking around to see what problems you can solve and coming up with a plan to do it. Not only will this teach you great work ethic, but you can also learn some valuable skills for your future career and in life. I've started many businesses in my life. My very first was painting rocks I found in my driveway and selling them. The second was a babysitting business. Now, while the first only lasted a week, the second I did for an entire year. And all of these businesses were before I was even a teenager. So here's just a few ideas for young entrepreneurs. You can start a pet sitting business, a lawn mowing service, or even tutoring. You can do tutoring online or at your school. Now, here's just a few ideas in addition to the ones I have on the slide. You can also consider babysitting, baking, or other creative outlets, and selling products at events. I once saw a girl at an event with a pretzel stand. The options for starting your own business are limitless. Remember though, it's never going to be as easy as just getting a job and collecting a paycheck. Now, let's say you don't want a typical job, but you also don't want to commit to a business. That's completely okay. There are even more ways that you can make money as a teen. One of them is selling your art. So whether you're a photographer, painter, or just a creative, there are so many places for you to sell your art online. Like I said, having the way the marketplace is these days and having all the online options really opens things up. The second is called flipping. This was made famous by Gary Vee, who was all about finding cheap things and flipping them for a profit online. Flipping is just the act of finding items at garage sales and thrift stores and selling them online for a higher price. There are some rules to it or ways that you can best practices to follow. So make sure that you Google that if that's something you're interested in and follow Gary Vee to see exactly how it's done. So now that we talked about how to make the money, let's discuss how to save it. Remember, your bills are as cheap today as they are ever going to be, and you have a support system to help you out. So take advantage of that and save as much as you can now. So here's just a few easy ways to save. Number one is open a savings account. You are going to want to make sure to keep your spending and savings account separate. Number two, follow a budget. A pay yourself first style budget is easy to follow and allows you to save money no matter how much you make. We'll actually show you how to do this in a future series at the end of the week. And lastly, take advantage of student discounts. A number of companies offer discounts for students. Take advantage of them. You'll never get those discounts again. In addition to these, you also want to keep track of your spending. I actually suggest an app like Mint. It's going to help you keep track of all of your accounts, and you're able to budget in it. And it's super easy to have an app, and it's completely free. We also suggest asking family to contribute to savings accounts for birthdays and other holiday gifts. And maybe, just maybe, if you show mom and dad you are serious about saving, they'll help you out as well. So now we know how to make the money, and we know the process of actually saving it, but how do we actually need to save? How much do we actually need to save? Well, that's all going to depend on what you plan to do once you leave mom and dad's house. So here's some examples. In example 1, you plan to go away to college after high school. In example 2, you plan to live at home and go to college locally. In example 3, you plan to move out and start work after high school. So let's take a look at each of these examples separately. In example 1, if you're going to go away to college, you might be thinking the grants, college savings, or student loans have got you covered. Well, there are going to be a lot of other expenses that you need to consider. Here are just a few: room and board, food, books, school supplies, personal items, transportation, laundry, furnishings for your new space, traveling home for the holidays, and entertainment. Again, these are just a few. Now, example number 2, living at home. Now, I know this is probably not the ideal choice for you, but it is the best possible choice for making sure you move out and stay moved out. However, it's still going to come with some costs that are currently covered by mom and dad. For example, maybe your parents are going to charge you rent. You're going to have to come up with your own gas and insurance and car costs, food, entertainment, personal expenses, books, and school supplies. Again, these are just a few of the costs that you're going to incur once you're out of the nest, even though you're still living at home. Last example. This is the hardest, most expensive, and least suggested option. Still, we know there will be those that choose this route. It's the one I chose. I told you I did things the hard way. So we want to make sure you're prepared. So here in the real world, here are just a few of the expenses you can expect once you move out. Housing, remember we talked about those examples earlier. Food, on average, a single person will spend between $165 and $365 a month on food. Utilities, those can range anywhere from $100 to $150 a month for one person. Transportation, furniture, remember you're going to have to furnish an entire place whether you rent it or not. Home needs, personal items, banking fees. That's right, banking fees. Things like over withdrawing accounts and not keeping a certain amount in your checking account. All these things, banks have all kinds of fees you have to check into. Insurance. Now, you may be covered on mom and dad's health insurance, but what you're not covered on is going to be their renter's insurance, which renter's insurance is important because you're going to have to protect yourself when you move into your own place because your landlord is not going to be responsible for all of your things. So renter's insurance is something you're going to need. Also car insurance and even possibly life insurance. You're going to have to think about deposits for things like your utilities and your first month's rent. Medical. Now this like I said, you may be on mom and dad's medical insurance, but you're still going to have co-pays and out-of-pocket expenses that you have to have. Clothing, gifts, and even more other expenses. Now that you know what expenses you can expect, I can give you the answer of how much you're going to want to save. You're going to want to have 3 to 6 months worth of future expenses saved before you leave the nest. So the bare minimum is going to be between $4,500 and $9,000. However, we suggest doing some homework to figure out your exact number and coming up with a plan. Now, you can debate the usefulness of teachers assigning homework all you want. This homework is extremely useful and is going to allow you to move out on your best foot. So here's your homework assignment. Number 1, do your research. Make a list of your expenses. Feel free to use our list if you want. Call around or hop on Google and write down the cost for all of these expenses. Number 2, make a list of your priorities. Figure out what's important for you and what you're willing to do without now so that you can have things that you need in the future. So if hanging out with your friends is important, you can still do that. Just maybe look for ways to do it cheaper or even for free. If entertainment is high on your list, that's totally fine too. Just make sure that you limit it so that way you're not taking away from what you need in the future. Number 3, ask for help. Remember earlier when we suggested asking family to donate to your savings for birthdays? Well, you can also use gift cards from them for your spending, and then the money you make can go for savings. The same thing goes if you talk to mom and dad and into an allowance maybe for doing extra work around the house. You can use that as your spending money and then use your money from your job or your business or whatever as your savings. Number 4, set a savings goal. Figure out the amount you need to save each week or month and then stick to it. Always save what you plan. Number 5, make a plan. And by plan, I mean a budget. A budget is just a fancy way of saying a plan for your money. Again, we're going to show you how to budget in another video in this series later on this week. Number 6, follow through. Plans are great if you put them into action, but if you fail to follow through, you're going to be left without a safety net when you join the world. So always follow through with your plans. And that's just good work ethic and good life advice, really. Lastly, I want to leave you with a quote. Do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. Warren Buffett. Again, you are at the best time in your life to save money. You don't have a lot of expenses right now, so get in the habit now of saving the money, and when you later on comes and you're out in the real world and you've been doing it for so long, it's going to come as second nature to you, and you're going to be a lot better off than a lot of your peers who didn't know this. So thank you so much for joining us for the Power of Savings. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the like button. And if you're interested in more training from us, make sure to subscribe below. If you would like to connect with us, you can find us online on our website. That address is www.breakthecyclecoaching.com, or in our private Facebook group, facebook.com/breakthecyclefinancialcoaching. I'm going to link both below in the comments. Again, thank you so much for joining you. We hope you enjoyed this, and stay tuned for more future seminars for finance for teens in the coming days. And if you have any tips or questions, feel free to ask those as well in the comments. Or if you have any suggestions for things that you'd like us to teach on, also leave those in the comments. Again, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button to stay up to date on all the stuff that we have to offer. And if you need to connect with us more, visit us online or in our Facebook group. We hope you have a great night and enjoy the rest of your week.